This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome back to the Warner Brothers podcast. I'm Kyle, joined by Tim. Tim, what's up?
Same old, same old. It's post NFL Tim. I'm still here. I stuck around.
He stuck around. He stuck around. And just when you said post NFL, I got sad in the heart a little bit. Just got a little bit sad.
6 months of no football.
6 months no football. But I mean, technically, the new NFL year starts probably like March 12th. That's just a date I'm throwing out, but mid-March at some point. So we'll be able to.
That's actually right. That's free agency.
Really? Damn.
Yep.
Damn, that was a good guess by me. And guess what? You'll probably see Tim quite a bit during the NFL offseason if I had to bet. You even requested an NBA show.
We'll get it.
And
I gotta put it together.
I'll extend the invite right now. Keenan and I will for sure be doing an All-Star Weekend show Friday morning. So if you want to join that and pose some of your NBA questions, feel free. You are more than welcome. But if not, we'll be talking plenty of NBA going forward. So if you're tuning in right now, if you're listening to this on a Tuesday, you will probably have heard mine and Keenan's immediate Super Bowl reaction. So this is almost like a part two to mine and Keenan's. This is mine and Tim's Super Bowl reaction. Rather than 30 minutes after the Super Bowl, actually in that case, it was like 15 minutes. Now we've had 24 hours or close to 24 hours to really digest it. Tim, multitude of ways I can go here. Obviously, we didn't get much of a game. So I'll ask you this. In 3 years, in 5 years, maybe even next year, we'll say 3 to 5. In 3 to 5 years, what are you going to remember most about this Super Bowl when people ask you about Super Bowl LIX?
I think it's going to be similar to the first, or I guess not the first, but the Tampa Bay Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes played in. And also a game that he kind of crumbled. But one thing that the box score doesn't tell you is in that game and this game, he was under pressure the entire game. He was running for his life the whole game. That's what I remember about that Tampa one. Not only is it like Tom Brady, the GOAT, just kind of putting Patrick Mahomes in his place, but I remember Patrick doing everything and his receivers doing nothing. I think I'm going to remember that a little bit going forward. I think there is definitely some stuff Patrick could have done different for this game to go a lot differently. So that, and then I'll definitely say just the Eagles defense, man. That defensive line was after him all game long. I'm definitely going to remember that. All points of the defense was just playing top tier. So that's what leads to 40 points, is when you can get turnovers, you can score points, you put yourself in the red zone multiple times. That's exactly what they needed. So I was shocked by this Super Bowl.
I was both. I can't say shocked. I can't say I was shocked by the result because I did think there was a world where the Eagles could win big. But I was expecting at least a competitive game, and maybe if the Eagles were going to win by double digits, it would come in the fourth. You know what I mean? I definitely expected at least a competitive game. So the fact that we got this weird result, and honestly, it was over before halftime. Honestly, I mean, obviously the Chiefs got the ball coming out of half, and had they scored there, they would have got life. But I think I'm going to remember how discombobulated the Chiefs looked overall. That's A. And I mean, it was everything. Like Kelsey legitimately looked like that should have been the last game of his career. All this talk about retirement, and he just looked bad. And not even just the drops. Every time they would pan to him after he dropped the ball or made a poor play on the ball, he looked just like dejected. Like they for whatever reason looked defeated, even in the midst of all this, even down 17, down 14, even when it was still a game. They looked so dejected. Maybe not so much Mahomes. Mahomes was obviously, like you said, he was under pressure all day. But Kelsey and Hopkins, that one play, I think was a 3rd and 20 where Mahomes has him wide open and he drops it. I think that was beginning of the third quarter, actually. The only time they really could have made it a game. Like that was their last chance of life. And, it went out right there. So they just looked so defeated. They just looked so unprepared. Much different than what we were used to seeing. That's exactly what we were praising them for against Buffalo was, yes, they might have got the benefit of damn near every call in that game, But, when it came to everything, when it was all fair, when it was all square, the Chiefs were on their A game. They looked well coached. Today, again, a rarity. Last night, a rarity where they were just all over coaching staff, quarterback, offense, defense, had their worst game of the year against a really good team. So, question for you, Tim. I know me and you, we talked about this very recently. Brandon Petty and I think we were talking about this post our trade deadline show. We might have talked about it on the show too. And Duke, who you've done a couple shows with, he said in the group chat last night, probably about the point where they're down 17. He goes, man, now everyone's going to come out of this game thinking Jalen Hurts is elite. And I had to agree with him. I was like, you know what? You're right. Everyone is going to come out of this game talking about he's elite. And I don't want to sound like a hater. I probably sound like a hater just posing it how I'm posing it right now. But he had a great game. He took away MVP. He had a great NFC Championship game too. But to me, I mean, if you look at the game, and this is just my memory, but I'm sure if you look at the highlights, seemed like they started from the 35 to 40 yard line each drive. Seemed like they had a short field each drive. Of course, they had the turnovers too. And Jalen, he thrives in that position. He thrives being, I don't want to say on third base. That sounds kind of hateful, but he does kind of play in a favorable position. So how do you feel about his performance? How do you feel about maybe the way he will be covered going forward? Is it fair? How do you feel? Do you think he's elite? Do you think it's a little fool's gold? Tell me this Jalen Hurts analysis that you have coming out of this game.
Before the Super Bowl, I was a Jalen Hurts hater. I want to give credit to Jalen Hurts because he did play a pretty phenomenal game. The pick was a bad decision. That was just poor decision making. You should not have even thrown the ball. That's on you. But everywhere else, he played really well. I don't think I can put him into the elite status. I think the Chiefs came into this game with one real goal on defense, and it was to shut Saquon down. And they did.
They achieved it.
But that opens up the passing game, right? You get Devonta Smith one-on-one like all game long. Eventually that's going to, happen. The touchdown throw to Devonta, amazing throw. It looked great. Hit him in stride, put it right in the end zone. There you go. That's exactly what you're looking for. So I do want to give a lot of credit to him because I think he played way better than I expected him to. I just think if the game went a little differently to where he was actually pushed to play well, it would have been a little bit different of a game. But when you're playing with a 20-point lead, it's a little bit easier, a little bit more calm, especially when it's like going into the fourth quarter with a 4-score lead. You're going to play a little bit better.
Are we haters for posing it like this? Or are we like it's how the game happened, right? They're up big.
Yeah.
That's when he thrives is when they're up, right?
Yep.
He down
gets
10
push, so there's his rushing touchdown.
Touch push, right? Yeah, exactly. Like it was the whole Jalen Hurts playbook. And again, it just seemed like, and I could be wrong, I'm sure there was drives where they started from inside the 20, but it really just seemed like every time they're starting 1st and 10, it seemed like it was 35-yard line and up, midfield and up. Again, sometimes it was turnovers, but I do want to say I'll give them credit on this. It does seem like, aside from just checkdowns, that Jalen does have a good deep ball, like you said, with a throw to Devonta Smith. And I will say that's one thing that struck me on that 4th and 2 on the first drive when he hit AJ and they gave that bogus offensive pass interference call. It was clear there, like, oh, if they went deep there, like they really think they can burn these Chiefs DBs. Like they were not afraid at all. You could see that. And penalty or not, AJ Brown had a step and a half on old boy on that play. Turns out that call ended up not mattering. The refs ended up not mattering in that game at all. But yeah, man, I mean, it's unfortunate because I will go to my grave believing that, if the Ravens somehow win that divisional round game against the Bills, that they would have probably smashed the Chiefs in the way the Eagles did, or at least one-handedly, and we would have got a way better Super Bowl. Or if the Bills even won last week or 2 weeks ago, we would have got a way better Super Bowl than this. I just have to believe that. Whether the Eagles would have been a tough matchup for them or not, I think it would have been a more entertaining Super Bowl. That being said, When you can rush four like that and not have to blitz, you're going to give any QB problems. But I don't know. I think the Bills and especially the Ravens would have been way more well equipped to handle it. Any more thoughts on the game?
My Saquon under came true.
Ooh, that's true. That's true. You predicted that. I forgot about that.
Just listen to that segment. I heard that exact clip where you were telling Brandon that I had him under, I think, 80 all-purpose yards, and I was like, hey, that's the only way the Chiefs were going to come into this game. Like, that's what they're preparing for, is to shut Saquon down. Super Bowl, they got a ring. That's all that matters. So it is good to see Saquon leave. Not only did Saquon basically get told by his former team, hey, you're not good enough to get a contract, A.J. Brown got traded in a similar fashion. So it's good to see them both get rings and be thriving out here in Philly, even though the city of Philadelphia is probably no longer.
Yeah, it might no longer be with us. It might no longer be with us. Broad Street might be burned to the ground. Tim, not only did you predict under 80 all-purpose yards for Saquon, you also said you hope the Eagles win because that might possibly mean that I don't know if you said the Giants GM or owner. I think you said the owner would possibly get a heart attack. That's the first death wish or harm wish we've had on here, I believe. I don't think that came true. Have not heard anything about that, but that was your other bold prediction along with the Saquon under 80 yards. Last thing I want to say about the game and as far as Jalen Hurts, Keenan made a great point last night. After the top four QBs, that fifth position is really wide open. You could put anyone there. I think all of us kind of agree that Jaden Daniels should be there. Keenan said, now with the Super Bowl win, you almost by default have to put Jalen Hurts there. Again, I don't want to make this sound like hate, but it's true. I mean, there are QBs with more ability than him. He does flat out win. I think he's a great leader at the quarterback position. And you got to take the rushing aspect into it too, which he certainly got that. I think we saw that more last night than really the entire postseason as far as him really taking off and pulling the ball and taking off for 20 or so yards. So shouts to him. Big congrats to him. Big congrats to the Eagles. Very interesting. How far do you think they have a chance to repeat? Keenan and I also talked about this. What would you give a percentage for the Eagles to repeat and come out of the NFC in general?
That is a tough question. Usually we see a Super Bowl hangover. Like when the Rams won it the next year, dude, they weren't even awake
Fell off
that season. They were sleeping the whole year. I don't necessarily think that that's going to happen. This roster is going to stay intact pretty much. Like there's not a lot of free agents leaving the team.
Young defense too.
Yeah, like on the defense, yeah, it's very young. Couple rookies, you got a lot of second-year players playing. So I think they're poised to be in a good spot. I mean, I don't expect the Giants to be overtaking them this year. Washington could be in the mix, and I think Dallas could be a train wreck by come the end of the season. So they should win their division next year. Percent chance, I would give it like – it's so hard to give a percentage just because obviously so many teams, only one can win. I'd give it like a 10% chance to even get back to the Super Bowl.
That's about what Keenan said.
That's probably – yeah, I think that's honestly probably being generous just because it's not – we have no idea. There's so much parity in the NFL. Like they could be
so much
a really good team next year and then also lose 10 games because they're all one-score games against juggernauts or something. But we will see. I'd say less than 10.
Okay. So you're about where Keenan said. I gave them a bigger number. I think I said 25% chance. I do think regardless of that, I do think this team is built for long-term success, given that Nick Sirianni's a young coach, given that, and I did say this about Hurts, if you saw the clip we posted earlier, I do think them winning the Super Bowl, that could propel Hurts to maybe become a greater QB. Now he doesn't really have to worry about his job at all. Not that he was worried about maybe a QB coming in, but, there's whispers in Philly all the time. The pressure's different in Philly than in most cities. So, I mean, this could propel him to become maybe a more anticipation thrower. Maybe you have to be born with that. I don't know. But it could propel him to a different place of QB than we initially anticipated for him. But I do think they're built for long-term success. Like you said, they're not losing anybody really in this offseason. they're one of the best drafting teams of the last 20 years, let alone the last decade. They've consistently drafted well my entire life, really, honestly. So, yeah, they're built for a long-term success. I don't want to put the dynasty word on them, but they're built for long-term success for sure. Thoughts on the halftime show? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to just say, like, they're definitely not necessarily a dynasty, but in the last 10 years, we've got 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 wins. So, like, that's a pretty big deal for any sports franchise. You could take the last 15 years of the Eagles and, you know, you could take, because I guess they made the Super Bowl in the early 2000s, but they didn't win it. So you could take the last 25 years of the Eagles, and that's better than 90% of the NFL.
100%.
They are better. And it's all come in this last few years, but it's been a big turnaround for them to be able to get there and actually have some success.
Absolutely. And not only that, 2 different iterations with these last 8 years between the Super Bowls. So you don't see that in the NFL like that quickly. It's been 6 to 8 years. I don't remember the exact year, but yeah, you don't see that in the NFL that often where 2 different iterations win the Super Bowl that quickly. Super Bowl halftime show thoughts.
I would say it was a good show. I was entertained by the show.
For sure.
I was a little underwhelmed by the show. I thought we would get a little bit more old Kendrick, and it seemed to sway towards the new Kendrick.
Got you.
You know, we got Squabble Up. We got Turn the TV, or I don't even know if he played Turn the TV Off, but
it's his last one. Yep.
We saw a lot of stuff from his new couple albums. Obviously, we got Not Like Us. What would have taken it to another level is like halfway through the show, he starts talking. This is when he teased Not Like Us. He started talking to the girls, right? And he said, hey, I want to do something slow. And then they teased Not Like Us. I thought he was going to remix Not Like Us and give us a new verse and just terrorize Drake with something.
That would have been historic. That would have been historic.
And that's where I was like, if he did that, I would have been 10 out of 10. Yep, you just killed the man, put him in his grave on live television, everything like that.
That would have been insane. An impromptu diss track at the Super Bowl. Yeah, that would have. I didn't even think of that. That would have buried a body for sure.
Yep. I didn't really realize there were so many different double meanings and things. Like, I didn't realize that Serena Williams and Drake were together at one point. Didn't realize she was his ex. And not only was she dancing in the camera, she was dancing in the X. Like, you know, his ex in the X. Like, that was another one.
I didn't notice that either.
I guess SZA also one of Drake's exes, so that's another thing. And then the last one was he shaped like the stadium like a PlayStation controller, right? A lot of people said that was because like he relates himself to video games or something like that. But the parent company that owns Drake's albums or record label is owned by Sony, which is the PlayStation company. So that's potentially be another disc. There's like so many in there. And then you got the chain, the minor A or lowercase a, maybe could mean A minor. There you go.
It could. It
and
very
then
well could.
With the camera in his face, he goes, "Hey Drake," with a big old smile on his face. So that was great. It was a good show. I enjoyed it. Gabby gave it a 6.5. So if you're going to direct any hate, direct it to Gabby. I thought it was a good show. I think it could have been a little bit better. It definitely could have blown us away if he did a couple new things. Like I said, if he remixed that track, that would have been dope. If he played a little bit more of his old stuff, like Mad City, some of those tracks would have been nice. So
I'm very surprised Mad City was not played, honestly. That's a perfect Super Bowl halftime show type of song. I thought it was a great performance. Obviously, I thought it was well thought out. I think at minimum, like that's why I'm not mad at Gabby's 6.5, because I thought at minimum it's a good performance. Even if you don't like Kendrick, even if you don't like rap, like you would have to hate him to not think that was a good performance. Like I saw some people talking about how it was one of the worst performances of all time. Like that's just not true. That being said, Tim, if you're Drake, right? I'm putting you in Drake's shoes right now. All right. Granted, Drake's Canadian, so maybe he didn't grow up with the Super Bowl. I don't know what the viewing is in Toronto for the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously now I'm sure it's everywhere, but who knows what it was like growing up for him. Drake's obviously been very Americanized. And I think I saw something about him being in Australia. So I mean, the Super Bowl would have been in the morning. I'm sure this was all intentional, but if you're Drake, you like sports. Drake famously bets on all kinds of sports. There's the Drake curse where if he puts a bet on you, you're probably going to lose. Da da da. But if you're Drake and you want to watch the Super Bowl, you got this beef going on with Kendrick. Kendrick's performing, and it's damn near like 90% that you're going to be a topic of the Super Bowl halftime show. Are you watching? Or are you just peacing out, enjoying your vacation, and doing anything but?
I'm probably not watching. Like, it doesn't matter if I watch it or not. I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to see the social media clips. I'm going to see all that. Like, I don't know if you noticed on TikTok, NFL posted, the official NFL TikTok page posted from the line, "Hey, Drake," to whatever he finishes that bar. That's the whole video, and it's front and center on their page. It's got millions of views already.
Messy.
Yeah, the comment section was like, "This is diabolical that they're literally posting this clip of the whole show. They honed it into this line, and they posted that." I probably would just keep my sanity as much as I can and just be like, "Hey, he can go do it, and everybody's going to see it, but I don't need to see it. Whatever." If he's not coming back with something, like if he's not responding, throwing any more punches with this new album coming out this Friday, then just keep your sanity, man. Just kind of let the beef die, and hopefully you can get over it.
What if he was very interested in how Patrick Mahomes is going to handle the Eagles' defensive line?
Well, then I think you can watch the game, and then when the halftime show comes on, you set a timer for about 40 minutes, and then you come back.
Guys, I got to go to the bathroom. I will be back. First half was great for the Eagles.
Weeping.
Yeah, right. I'm just gonna take this box of tissues and I'm gonna go over here. Don't worry about me, guys. What commercials stuck out to you? Me and Keen were talking about this last night. I have a few that I liked. I'm interested to see what stuck out to you for commercials.
I hit the group chat immediately. I said that the Doritos one was good. Supposedly the Doritos one, the dude that was starring in it wrote it. Like it was like a fan audition thing, and he wrote it. I thought that one was pretty good. The Pringles one with the mustaches, I think
one of my
one
favorites
was
too.
Good.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Like stealing James Harden's mustache and a bunch of other stashes. That was a entertaining one. I don't remember the company, but the one where everybody's their head was shaped as a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
That one was kind of creepy at first, and then they played another one later on, and I was like, all right, doubling down on this kind of
They
weird.
did double down on that. You're right.
Yeah. So that one was those were the three that definitely stuck out to me. I was told that there was going to be an Elon Musk ad, and we did not see that. So
I don't remember that one either. I got to say, I started perusing social media probably midway through the third quarter. Like it was probably about 6 minutes left in the third quarter where I really was like, whatever with this game. You know, it was on, but I wasn't really paying attention. And so I caught some of the commercials. Some just kind of blew past me. I don't remember an Elon one. I did see online, like I predicted with you and Keenan, a Kanye West commercial. I thought it would stick out in some way. Apparently, I did not see this commercial, but apparently there was a Yeezy commercial. But all the proof I saw of it was off people's phones. Like there was no actual physical clip of this going around on social media. So that confused me. So maybe it just got into certain homes and certain homes it did not get into. I don't know. I'll do my research on that.
Do you remember what the commercial was? Because I definitely did not. I was paying attention. I was trying to see it because like you predicted, Kanye, I was like looking for him. I saw later on that he posted a commercial about his teeth.
That's what it was.
Okay. I saw the video, but I did not see that commercial. It was not on the Super Bowl. Like
I didn't get it. And I just saw what I saw of it on Twitter was people like, you know, having the video on their TV from their phone talking about, yo, check this Kanye commercial. But I did not see Kanye post it. I'm going to go do my research on that after. So again, maybe some homes, maybe certain cable or satellite providers got it and others didn't. I don't know how it worked, but yeah, I did not see a Kanye one. Maybe it came on when I went to the bathroom. The funniest one to me that I saw, I like the mustache one. I completely agree with you on that. And it was funny right after you mentioned the group chat about the Doritos one. The very next commercial was a Michelob Ultra commercial, the pickleball one with I think it was William Dafoe. They're talking about hustling people for pickleball games and getting the Michelob Ultras. That one made me laugh. I like that one quite a bit. But the Hellman's orgasm one, that was great. That probably got the biggest laugh out of me. The biggest unintentional laugh, and I need to hear your opinion on this because me and Keenan talked about this last night. The Tom Brady Snoop Dogg commercials made me laugh. I don't think that was the commercial's intention at all to make people laugh, but the first commercial comes up and they're talking literally, I'm not kidding when I say this, probably about 8 seconds of actual commercial time. Talking about, I hate you, but I don't know why I hate you. Snoop replies. And then that was it. And then it cuts to like anti-hate something. I don't know. And I'm like, that's really weird. Why would they choose those two people? Like, and then that was it. Like, it was literally 15 seconds compared to your average Super Bowl commercial, which is like 30 to 45. Like, that's weird. Like that, whoever made this was probably out of touch. I don't know why they chose those two people of all people. And then it came on again in the second half. And it was like slightly longer. Like maybe instead of 15 seconds, it was about 18 to 20 seconds. I couldn't help but laugh, man. I was just like, why did they choose? How did they come across like it's got to be Snoop Dogg and Tom Brady? What did you think about that commercial? Am I alone in my thinking here?
I totally agree. It's definitely like out of touch. Like they've done these commercials before with like George Kittle and other like active NFL players where they're like, hey, let's end the hate. Stop all this. Let's everybody love each other, yada, yada, yada. Tom Brady, man,
yada,
like
yada.
that man does not interact with a single like normal person in his day-to-day life. Like nobody's going to be like, all right, guys, Tom Brady said to stop the hate, so we got to stop hating. Yeah. That was crazy.
Tom said it. Snoop said it. We gotta stop it now.
Yeah. Tom and Snoop shook on it, so we're good. I didn't expect to see Tom in multiple Super Bowl commercials because you said there was 2 there. He was also in a Duracell commercial.
Yeah,
being like a robot. They came in and switched his batteries out or some shit, and I was like, that was pretty clever, and I thought that was a decent one.
Yeah, he was in like 4 or 5. There was one other one he had a quip in. It was about, I don't actually know who it was. It was like an F1 driver. And they were like talking about how cool he was and this and that. And they talked about his jawline. And then I had Tom Brady like talking about like, oh, it's not that cool of a jawline or something like that. So yeah, there was like probably 5 or 6 commercials that Tom was just in for whatever reason. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably at some point going to go to the YouTube and check out this Snoop Dogg Tom Brady commercial and just laugh at the comments because I have a feeling a lot of people are in line with me and are like, why the fuck did they choose these 2 people of all people? I also kind of like the Bud Light commercial with Shane Gillis and Post Malone. That wasn't a bad one either. Peyton Manning was in there too.
I liked it. The problem I have with a lot of these commercials, I saw that one, and then the Coors Light one, the Case of the Mondays with the sloths.
I missed that one.
I've seen those commercials before. I see them as ads when I'm watching like a YouTube video or a TV show. Like, this is the Super Bowl. This is the time to make it like the most memorable one-time commercial. And they're showing me a commercial that I've already seen 3 times. So those ones, like the Bud Light one, I was like, okay, I already know the whole plot of this. There's no point in me watching it. I don't like it when companies do that. Show me a new one, like Homes.com or whatever. That was a clever commercial, one that I've never seen before, where they're like, oh, Homes.com is the best. But then they're like doing a parody on it because you're not allowed to say that, yada, 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 all those stuff. There were a few good ones. Quite a few good ones, actually. I thought this year compared to last 2 years was pretty good.
I agree. I agree with that. I would say, yeah, this was the most memorable commercial tonight. Even though I said, like, I didn't see a lot in the second half. More stuck out to me than usual, I would say. So I agree with that statement. Tim, you said you have a couple questions for me.
I don't know who runs your Instagram, if it's you or Keenan, but whoever did victory lapped the Eli Manning not making first ballot Hall of Fame. They posted the video.
That was me.
What did you think? Okay.
Yeah.
I get the hate. I understand it. What did you think of this year's Hall of Fame class? We got 4 people in it.
I saw the class. I saw it on maybe Friday, or it might have even been pregame. I saw one was Jared Allen, right? It was Jared Allen. It was Marcus. No, not Marcus Allen. Eric Allen, the DB, I believe.
Eric. Yep.
Then who was the other two?
Antonio Gates and Sterling Sharp Sr.
That's right, Sterling Sharp. So Antonio Gates is a perfect example here. Eric Allen, I believe he probably finished his career probably around the time I started watching, if not before. So I get that. Sterling Sharp, he famously ended his career early because of injury, but was on a Hall of Fame path. And he retired long ago. So he probably got in like maybe even on the last year on the ballot. So I'm cool with that. Jared Allen, he was definitely a stud in his day. I'm assuming again for him, this is probably his fourth or fifth year on the ballot. So I'm okay with that too. He was definitely a prime pass rusher in his day. Was surprised to see him there, honestly. But Antonio Gates is a prime example to me of the debate versus Eli as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Whereas Gates was probably anywhere from one or two and most important tight ends in his day. And he even spanned into the last decade, post Tony Gonzalez, right? I would say it was him and Gonzalez for a lot of the 2000s. And then he kind of popped up here and there in the top five after that when it was Gronk in them and Aaron Hernandez in them and Jimmy Graham and all these other new age tight ends. He was still in that top 5, top 10 zone. He had a lot of production in his career. Not much postseason success at all. I don't know, probably if I had to guess, less than 5 touchdowns in the postseason, if I had to guess, right? But all he did during the regular season makes him eligible and worthy of being a first ballot Hall of Famer to me, compared to Eli, where he was inconsistent, where he was, that being said, as you've said, he had all time great runs in the postseason. Not only did he win 4 games in those postseasons, including the 18-0 Patriots, also 4 games on the road, or 3 games technically, not counting the Super Bowl, but 6 games on the road is tough. And the guys he beat on the road, in the first one of them was Brett Favre. Second one was Aaron Rodgers, both in Lambeau. That's tough. So I would not be mad, honestly, if Eli sat out one more year and got in on the third ballot. I wouldn't be mad at all. I wouldn't even be mad if he got in on the second ballot. That still seems a little soon because he was so mediocre in some years. But overall, to your original question, I know I'm comparing Antonio Gates and Eli. To your original question, seems like an okay class, right? Seems like an average class. I guess to me, Antonio Gates would be the highlight, and probably Sterling Sharp because, again, he was well on his way before his neck injury. But it's a cool class. So shouts to the 4 that made it. Yeah, it's probably a pretty average class compared to, some of what we're going to get in years coming with like Peyton Manning and Tom and all them. Peyton actually might already be in, right? He might have got in last year. I don't know.
Yep, Peyton's already in.
Yeah, Peyton got in last year. So yeah, we're still due for some great classes though coming up.
I think this is a good class. I mean, there's multiple people in this class that you had always made the argument first ballot Hall of Famer is reserved for the best of the best. If you weren't the top 2 or 3 of your position while you played, you don't deserve to be first ballot. I think the argument for Antonio Gates being one of the best while he was playing could be made. So him to be a second ballot Hall of Famer makes sense. He was up there.
That wasn't him on his first ballot?
No,
Gates?
This is
oh wow, ballot. Wow. Feel like that's kind of a snub then. I'm corrected. Feel like he was
Jared Allen, I expected him to get in earlier than this year. He's, I think he's got to be like top 5 in sacks, so he's got to be like
is he top 5
leader in a lot of the.
He's top 5.
He has a lot.
I know he definitely had a 20 sack season or 2. I didn't think he was top 5.
He might not be 5.
I could see him definitely being top 15, top 20 though.
He's well above 100. He's 12 at 136.
And he probably retired about 8 years ago, it seems.
I think longer than that.
Really?
Quite a bit longer than that. I think it was like 10. Let me see. Yeah, I thought he would have been in a couple years ago. 2016, he retired. So 9 years, 8, 9 years.
And it's a 5-year waiting period, so he's on his fourth or fifth year of eligibility. Yeah, you would figure he would have got in earlier. He's also one of the funnier athletes. Like he's an actual legit like funny athlete, similar to Peyton. Like they got good timing, funny quips, this and that. So look up some Jared Allen clips if you want to be entertained, because he was definitely a funny dude in his day. Um, I'm shocked to hear that Antonio Gates got in on his second ballot. That could be some tight end hate right there, because I don't know. There's only select few tight ends that deserve to be first ballot, and he'd be one of them. He'd be one of them to me. Him, Tony Gonzalez, Gronk, obviously,
I mean,
Kelsey,
he's a top 5 tight end of all time. That's like not arguable.
for sure.
You could put him as high as like 3, I think. I think Gronk and Gonzalez are ahead of him. But you could definitely make the argument over Kelsey. He did it for longer, and the touchdowns, he was just so consistent with it. So
Yeah, him and Rivers were a deadly combo. Absolutely, absolutely.
my other question was, who would you consider a bigger Hall of Fame snub?
Mm.
Eli Manning or Reggie Wayne?
Reggie Wayne's not in.
Nope, didn't make it.
Was this his first year of eligibility?
Nope.
Reggie
I don't
Wayne.
know how many years he had, but he had made a tweet that was like, "Oh, I expected to not be in," or something like that. I don't remember exactly what the tweet was, but I remember seeing it on social media and being like, the caption was, Hall of Fame snub, Reggie Wayne.
He's definitely a snub. Again, Eli's so hard to calculate because of his mediocre career. Again, that's mean to say. That's hateful to say right there. It wasn't a mediocre career, but you didn't know year to year what you were getting with Eli. He's very much. I'm honest when I say this. He was very much similar to what Jameis Winston is now, year to year, where or even game to game, where you could have, yes, 6 touchdowns possibly, but you might get 2 of the worst picks in that game, and including a pick six. Eli was very much like that. You could have a 6-sack, 8-sack game, which of course that's on the offensive line, but you would have games where Eli just looked terrible, and then you would have games where he looked like his brother or like Tom Brady, or either one of those guys. That's one thing Eli has going for him, is the mistakes didn't phase him. He was amazing at the 2-minute drill. He was unfazed by pressure. I mean, again, 6 road wins in his 2 Super Bowl trips. I mean, that's as good as anything. So that's definitely Hall of Fame worthy. Reggie Wayne, though, incredibly consistent throughout his career, put up Hall of Fame numbers, was the number 2 to Marvin Harrison, eventually became the number 1, and put up numbers even into the Andrew Luck era in Indy. So, whether that's first ballot or whether that's, an early ballot Hall of Famer, he definitely should be in by now. So I don't think Eli, as I don't think Eli got snubbed on the first ballot personally. So I would say Reggie Wayne is the more notable snub there. But if we're sitting here 5 years from now and Eli's not in the Hall of Fame, then we can talk about snubs, I think, for sure. But I'm not, if Eli eventually gets in, I won't be mad at it. I really won't be. First ballot, though, I would have been pretty damn upset, because I remember the day Eli retired, a lot of the debate was, hey, is this guy going to be a Hall of Famer or is he not? And then all of a sudden now we're talking first ballot within the last couple months when, he made it to the finalist spot for this class. So I would have to go with Reggie Wayne in that case.
I agree. I think Reggie Wayne deserves to be in. He has the stats to back it up. I think with this class that we just saw get inducted, if you just tack Reggie Wayne's name on there, nobody bats an eye. Like, nobody's like, yeah, he doesn't deserve it. This is not. He's been eligible now for a few years. So he retired in 2014, I believe. So he's been eligible for quite a few years. He just has not made it in yet. So I'm a little confused on that. I don't know what the voting process is, who actually votes on it, but I think they're giving a little bit of disrespect to Reggie Wayne, because he was, at one point in his career, one of the best in the league to do it. So
For sure. He's interesting because he's not Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison, T.O., who was second ballot, but these guys who, you know, you look at their stats and you're like, okay, no doubt, no doubt. He was never. It doesn't seem like he was ever top 5, but he was always like in that top 8 range. And again, he at one point had the shadow of Marvin Harrison because he was one of them once at one point in his career. But again, once Marvin Harrison went away, Reggie Wayne stepped up and he was still that guy. He was still producing just as well as he was as the number 2. So it'd almost be like if T. Higgins, like let's say he, and we'll talk about the offseason here in a sec, but let's say T. Higgins goes somewhere and is the number 1 and continues to put up stats, if not better. It would be similar to that. Like, would that make T. Higgins first ballot? I don't know. You know, and Reggie Wayne's got a Super Bowl ring on top of that too, and probably has good postseason numbers. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. It's weird that he's not in, given when he retired. It seems like he would have been in by now. So, yeah. All right, Tim. 3. Doesn't have to be bold, just 3 predictions for the offseason. And just to tease this to the listeners and the viewers, we may or may not have a NFL prediction show coming to you very soon. It could be the summer, but it could be sooner. We'll see. But so maybe this will be a tease for that. But Tim and I will have 3 offseason predictions. And Tim, what do you got?
Had to come up with these in the last 45 minutes.
It was on the
fly. So a lot of these are off the dome, but I do have one that I've been thinking about now. So we did see, we've seen a post now saying that the Cowboys have at least had internal discussions about shopping Micah and potentially trying to get a haul for him.
You sent me this.
So I'm going to say that they do trade him.
Oh.
They're going to get 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a player. They're going to try this rebuild now. And what's going to happen is this defense is going to be terrible next year. Then they're going to fire Schottenheimer and get a new coach anyways. So they're going to be bottom of the barrel starting.
So you said a few things there. They're going to fire Schottenheimer in season or after next season, like on Black Monday?
After the season. Okay. It'll be like a 3-14 season. And they'll be like,
all right. Get out of here. All right. Okay. Tim's coming in hot. All right. 3-14. I mean, that leads a lot of questions for like Dak and a lot. But I'm not going to press you on that because, again, we'll be talking more football very soon. And, that's great. So, are you being facetious or you really believe 3-14, though?
I think they could have a terrible year. If they trade Micah, if that happens, this defense will be terrible. They will not generate pressure. That was one of their biggest things. This year they were terrible against the run. Mm-hmm. And a big reason on why they were terrible against the pass later on is because you don't generate pressure when Micah is off the field. So if they trade him, he can't be on the field for them. Therefore, they will suck. So that's my take. I think if they trade him, they will be a 3-5 win football team, especially with a rookie head coach that hasn't called plays in years. I think this is just the recipe for disaster.
Question for you before you go to your second and third predictions. Kellen Moore, is he taking the Saints job? Is that what we're getting here? Is that why there's been no hire from the Saints? Are they waiting on Kellen Moore?
I don't believe it's official, but we have definitely seen multiple posts saying he's expected to take the job. It's offered to him. They've told him that if he wants it, it's his.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Next prediction. What you got?
For the second, I guess that first one was really like 3-1.
Kind of was. You gave us a coach firing, a final record, and you gave us a superstar getting traded. So I like it.
Big trade. I think this one isn't necessarily bold, but we obviously saw Myles Garrett request a trade. I don't think they get a suitor. I don't think that they get a trade that they think is worth it. So I think he'll be a Cleveland Brown. I don't know if that means he holds out, but I don't think he gets moved before the start of next season.
I'm making this face, Tim, because that was one of my predictions. So now I got to come up with another one. So
nice.
I guess we're in line there. All right. I agree with you.
I've got to think of a third one. So if you want to take the reins here, or if you want to talk about the Myles Garrett one, go right ahead.
I agree with you. Like when I first saw he requested a trade, I'm like, it's Myles Garrett. Why would the Browns just honor that? You know, I get that he's been a consummate professional outside of him trying to kill Mason Rudolph at one time. And that he's been, loyal to their organization and this and that. I don't know what his contract looks like, but to me, I'm like, why would the Browns do that? Unless you know for sure you're getting an absolute haul for this guy, similar to what you just gave for Micah. Why would you trade him? There's no reason why you would trade him. Of course, maybe they could take Abdul Carter and that would be a perfect replacement. Or you could take Abdul Carter and wreck quarterbacks' lives for the next 10 years with both of them. Because you know what? A lot of defensive linemen really do age well, even when they lose their athleticism. J.J. Watt was still an impact player late into his career. So I agree with you. I don't think Myles Garrett gets traded. And if he does, it's going to be for an insane haul because he should deserve that. But I don't see it happening because why would the Browns do that? I'll give you this. Tyreek Hill does in fact get traded. Tyreek Hill will be on a new team. Again, these aren't bold. These are just our strict predictions. So that's one, Tyreek. Two would have been Myles Garrett staying. I agree with you there. Let me give you.
I got a third one. So if you want to think,
go ahead.
I think the Tennessee Titans, with the number 1 overall pick and the chance to draft a franchise quarterback, fumble the bag and they take Travis Hunter 1 overall.
That's a good one.
I think that's a reach. I think that's a big reach. But the GM has come out and said that, I think the quote was, if we get the chance to take a generational player, we're going to do it. I don't know if you would necessarily call Cam Ward or Shador generational. Maybe Abdul Carter's generational. I don't think so. He's definitely not as praised as Myles Garrett was coming out of college. But people would definitely call Travis Hunter generational because he plays both ways. He can excel at both positions. I think this is going to go against the wishes of Callahan, or is that the head coach, Callahan? Am I confusing him with the Panthers coach?
No, yeah, Callahan. Brian Callahan.
Okay. I always get those two mixed up. Their names are similar. I think he wants a QB, and I think he's willing to take the pick with a rookie and try to shape him and build a franchise with him. But I think the GM's going to look at it and say, yes, Will Levis didn't necessarily win his games last year, but he didn't play terrible, so we should be able to roll with it. And I think they're going to fumble it and make a bad pick. So,
okay. I'll give you another one here. So on the heels of the news that it looks like Aaron Rodgers will not be back with the New York Jets. We just talked about the Browns. I think there's a chance. As a matter of fact, I'll stamp it here. I think Aaron Rodgers is a Cleveland Brown next year, especially if they're not gonna draft a QB here. It's not a highly rated QB class, from what I hear. They're sitting at number 3, correct? They're one spot ahead of the Pats. Yep. So they very well could.
Wait, no. They're 2. The Giants.
They're 2. Giants are 3. That's right. So let's go with your theory that they take Travis Hunter at 1. Okay, Titans are at 1. Browns are sitting there for a QB. They should take a QB, right? They should take Shador or Cam Ward. I think most people lean that Cam Ward's the better QB. But here's my thing. Here's my thing with drafts all the time. And this was kind of my thing with Drake May, and time will tell, and Drake May's turned out to be really good, right? Or looks really good. It's hard to tell behind that offensive line and his receivers that he had. But my thing is, like, next year is supposed to be a great QB class, right? Why can't you wait and get a QB that's deeper next year? You know what I mean? Because I don't think we're talking Browns Super Bowl. I mean, shit, maybe if Aaron Rodgers is their QB. So I don't like taking a position of need, like QB specifically, just because it's a QB. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel like we ended up with Mac Jones back in the day, or a few years back. Felt like he was the best QB available. We needed a QB, so we just took him. And you saw the results. And Mac was decent in his rookie season, but I'm getting off the track here. Aaron Rodgers, the Cleveland Browns, that makes a lot of sense. They have a Super Bowl ready defense. As I just said, maybe they don't have Super Bowl expectations, but they really do have a Super Bowl roster if everything goes correct. If they could maybe beef up wide receiver a little bit. If maybe they don't need to, the way Jerry Jeudy played last year. But if you get a healthy Nick Chubb He'll be back year 2. He came back halfway through this year. And that defense is still performing. And you've got a QB to hold it down. And again, Rodgers past his prime, yes. Past his peak, absolutely. Did he have a good season last year, stats wise? Yeah. I really don't think he's as bad as some people would make him out to be. So I do think, regardless, Rodgers will definitely be in the NFL. It would be wild to see him on Cleveland. I think it makes more sense for him to go to like a dome team. This at this stage in his career, but Cleveland makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, we had Joey talk about Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins to the Browns. If you're gonna take an Achilles quarterback, why not take Aaron Rodgers, who's still got the live arm? Where Kirk Cousins, his arm looked DOA the last 6 weeks of the season. So I could definitely see a world where Aaron Rodgers is a Cleveland Brown. And you gave all 3, right? So this is my third.
I got one more. If you have another,
go ahead.
I had come up with this a few days ago, actually, and it just kind of popped back into my brain, right? So the Indianapolis Colts are running it back with Anthony Richardson, as they should. They drafted him not too long ago, still on that rookie deal. We've kind of seen the flashes. We've seen the bad. We've seen the good. I think this year they get a lot of bad. And I think they're going to get a top 1 or 2 pick, and they're going to draft Arch Manning. They're going to run it back with another Manning as a top overall pick. They're going to get their QB. They're going to do
this is a prediction legacy for next year. We're talking 2026 exactly. At this point. Okay.
So this is a far out
That'd be wild
prediction. Arch Manning, obviously, at Texas. He'll be eligible to go into the draft after he plays this season. We've seen the flashes from him when he's had to sit in for Quinn Ewers. He's been great. So I don't think it's crazy to say that he is a top 3 pick in his class when he comes out. I think that he'll get a lot of hype. Manning v. Manning. They're gonna run it back.
All right, that's a wild one because again, you're branching into 2026, and if there really was a Manning 2.0 era in Indianapolis, shit would get insane. And it would be a hell of a cool story. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, ESPN might even overdo it. Like they might even replace the Cowboys if we get Arch Manning in Indianapolis as a Colt. People would run wild with that. So we got news that Deebo requested a trade, right? Or he's seeking a trade. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right.
There has been talk from the 49ers to move him.
I'm going to give you this, all right? If he gets moved, caveat, if he gets moved, I think he gets replaced with either one of Devontae Adams or T. Higgins.
I like that. It makes a lot of sense. They drafted Pearsall, so they're hoping he kind of steps into that role. But Ayuk's not going to be ready. He's not going to be ready week 1. They're going to need somebody else to be there. So if they do move him, they can't. I don't think that they're going to feel comfortable rolling forward with a year 2 guy and George Kittle. I don't think so. So I would agree with that they are aggressive and they go out and get somebody to fill the void.
I'm trying to come up with another one because you just gave me 4. I'm stuck at 3, so I feel like I at least got to match you.
The Deebo thing, I was a little confused. So obviously the Rams had said they're going to try to trade Kupp. And obviously like Bleacher Report isn't like a great source. Like I feel like a lot of the times the people that write those posts and the articles don't know what they're talking about. Like they're just like AIing it or something. They were saying that Deebo would get more than Cooper Kupp would in trade value, and I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think both of them had pretty similar seasons. Like we saw a little bit of flashes from both of them, but then a lot of the times they were irrelevant. And I think with Deebo, I think he's a little bit younger, but he rushed a lot, so he's a little bit less longevity-wise. He's not going to last as long as Kupp might. So I don't necessarily think Deebo's worth more than Cooper Kupp in any mind.
Yeah. It's in theory, Deebo should cost more because he's the younger asset here, right? Thing is, with Ayuk going out, I think he went out week 6, maybe week 6 or 7. It was such a disappointing season for Deebo. It just seemed like he's always injured every year. Like he's always out for like 2 or 3 games here and there. It seemed like he was on the roster a lot and just didn't produce or would go out of the game. You know what I mean? He'd play and then go out in the second quarter, then he'd still play the next week and then just have an underwhelming game. I was very disappointed in Deebo this season. So yeah, I think that tanks his trade value. And like you said, he's got the rushing attempts in there where they use him, especially in the postseason. They'll use him pretty heavily. That does add to the injury effect, which, you mentioned Travis Hunter. I mean, that'll be a thing too when he comes to the NFL. How long will he really last after playing extra snaps in college football? Or even if he plays extra snaps in the NFL. So in Deebo's regard, had he just had an average season this year, I think, yeah, then he fetches more than Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp looks past his prime. He wasn't even producing for them, which again, Deebo wasn't for the 49ers, but at least you can say, all right, they got weapons here. They got Kittle, McCaffrey, even though he was only there for a few games. Like there's enough wealth to spread around there in San Francisco. Whereas in LA, you really only got 3 or 4 position players that you really want to feed the ball to. Kupp's one of them, and he completely faded out the last 6 weeks of the season. So interested to see what happens there with Kupp. Very interested. See what the suitor is. It seems like he'd have to go to a veteran team, right? You don't really want him on a young team. So I'm very interested to see what his price is. And then Deebo, I mean, he's just a risk anyway. Again, very disappointed in his last season. He could pop, but he definitely seems like one of these players who makes more sense in a Shanahan offense than possibly, I don't know, pick one. If he went to the Saints, what does that look like? Maybe if he played for the Dolphins, maybe if there was some sort of swap there, maybe if Tyreek went to the Niners and he went to the Dolphins, I could see McDaniel using him well. But it would have to be certain teams for Deebo. Whereas while we're on the topic of Kupp makes sense to me for another veteran team similar to the Rams who are actually younger, but you know what I mean. So a team closer to the finish line as far as Super Bowl goes. I think that makes more sense for Kupp because he just seems like he's only got about 2 years left in him, judging by the last 6 weeks. One more prediction. I want to go with a firing, but it's hard to say who's going to get fired, right? I could say something easy like a Mike McDaniel because he does seem like he's on the hot seat, but that would involve, So let me say that. Let me go with the Dolphins. Dolphins will draft a QB that's going to put pressure on Tua after his injury-riddled season this year. So I could see them getting a day 2, day 3 QB that maybe could have went higher in the draft, and they steal him, and it's going to put pressure on Tua. And not only that, if he gets injured, that guy will be starting and ready to go probably. So he'll be someone who maybe is, I don't know, maybe he's an older quarterback for college, but it'll be someone who's ready to play if Tua does in fact go down.
There's definitely a couple QBs in this draft that have like the potential to be a franchise QB, but certain characteristics are putting them behind. Like Quinn Ewers could do it. He could totally, but he'll probably be a day 2 or 3 pick that goes and backs up somebody. Jalen Milroe's kind of the same thing. He might fall. He's gotten bad measurements at combines and stuff. They're saying he's got tiny hands. So maybe he falls to the end of the second round and they trade up and snag him. And then Tua gets a concussion and misses a month and he steps in and plays really well. And then exactly what you just said happens. He's putting pressure on him. They're like, oh, do we release Tua and just roll with it? Do we force him to retire? Do we just kick him out? Put him out to pasture?
Peace Tua. You put him out to pasture. I just thought, how like they like a guy gets passed on in the draft and he's like highly touted for a little bit maybe, and he ends up being successful, and then he'll have like a pregame interview. He'll be like, yeah, like I remember all the players drafted ahead of me, or all the quarterbacks drafted ahead of me, this or that, or they said I was too slow. Now I'm one of the faster QBs. Or, what name a position? I'm one of the faster wide receivers in the league. Da da da. Be funny with this guy and be like, yeah, they called me tiny hands. They said my hands was tiny. I'm one of the best QBs in the league now.
The best thing I've seen is somebody took a picture of him at Alabama holding the ball ready to throw it, and they like shrunk his hands down. So they're like little tiny
mini
nubs
hands
on the ball.
That's funny.
It's so good.
Tim, any final thoughts before we sign off?
I don't have any final football thoughts, but I do got one question for you.
Okay.
Something I have not seen too much of. I don't follow basketball,
Okay.
but it is very rare that you see a trade get rescinded and not completed. So, the Lakers Charlotte trade, how do you feel about Lakers getting Connect back and then not getting a center? Like, is that a big deal? Are they going to be able to go sign somebody? Is there even a center available for them to get?
We will see in a couple weeks, probably after the All-Star break, if they can get a center on the buyout market. Excuse me. I do believe it's going to hurt them not getting Mark Williams. Mark Williams is someone who is often injured, but he would have directly benefited from LeBron and Luka, right? So as long as he was there, he would, especially in the offensive end, he would have absolutely benefited from them. Funny enough, this guy actually has a longer, I don't know how this is possible, but he's got a longer standing reach than Wemby, which is insane. And he does not block shots. He does not protect the rim well. So that's effort right there. So there is a history of you go to play with LeBron and then your effort changes and you become an impact player. Sure. But this guy like produces as far as rebounds go, but block shots and defense would have been a tall task for him. It would have been an interesting fit for sure. That being said, that already would have been a large step down from Anthony Davis manning the paint on defense, right? So you're going from an A+ to a C-, and I'm being nice. Now you don't even have that. Now you're going back to Dalton Connect, who doesn't play the center. I don't even know. Their starting center, I believe, would be Jackson Hayes, who is athletic, but that's about it. Like, that's the only thing I could say about him. He doesn't really do anything.
LeBron at center.
Honestly, at this point, I mean, you might as well. He can at least body the guys, but it would take a lot out of him. But I can't see this team competing on defense at all. They got the Jazz tonight, and Luka's making his debut tonight. So against a team like that, it's really not going to matter. But even a team like Phoenix, who's, in the play-in spot with the Lakers sitting at the 6 right now, that would give them a lot of problems. Most of these teams in the West would give them a lot of problems with no center. Keenan had said in one of our group chats that he thinks they're still going to be a top 6 seed, which is fair. They're sitting at the 6 right now. I think they got a couple games ahead of whoever's the 7, but they're going to be able to play absolutely zero defense. And that was already going to be the case with Mark Williams, but you felt better about him being 7'2" and being a monster fucking athlete. Just felt better. Now they don't even have that. They have nothing at center. They have literally just tall guys at center. So, yeah, you're right. You don't see trades get rescinded very often. It happens probably once every 3 or 4 years. Famously happened with Tyson Chandler, if you're familiar with him. Happened, I think, when he was on Dallas. They were trying to trade him somewhere, and he failed his physical, and it didn't go through. So it does happen from time to time, but it's rare, especially like 3 days later after the trade's already completed, type of rare. So
after the deadline, too.
After the deadline,
I would have thought that they took care of it and got it done. My favorite thing was that Charlotte gave him a welcome back post on social media. He didn't even leave. Yeah, and it was like, welcome back, Mark Williams.
That's funny. That's really funny. I'm going to have to look that up later. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It makes the whole Lakers dynamic, and obviously they'll get a center in the offseason. And again, they very well could in the buyout market. Who knows? But if they don't, I mean, you're going to be able to have a layup line against them. Teams are going to average about 125 on them. And I'm not exaggerating. Anywhere from 115, 110 to 125, it'll be attainable, especially if you can shoot as a team. So very interested to see this Lake show / shit show, but it's really not a shit show because they got Luka. I mean, it doesn't even matter what they do the next 2 or 3 years because they got Luka. So they'll be set. Get a center, get a couple shooters. It won't even matter. But I think that's all the time we have for today. Tim and I will be back Wednesday talking more football. You might get some more predictions out of us. Who knows? But Tim, this was a lot of fun. Great talking to you. I'll see you in a couple days. We will be back. Everyone be safe and enjoy the show.